thing that I don't like is that I'm not sleeping well at night.
And right now you're choosing to be in debt.
I'm just stuck. And so unless I marry a trust fund kid, I don't see this absolving itself.
$260,000 worth of debt. You can't afford to go to homecoming. You're sitting there telling me that these are necessities on your card, and then we're spending $300 to go to homecoming when you don't have money to pay your credit card bill right now.
But it's going to sound bad, but it really isn't that bad.
And right now you're deciding to stay in debt and spend money on homecoming versus, hey, let's throw that at the credit card debt, drowning you right now. It sounds like atrocious 25 more years of just stress and anxiety from this debt.
Don't yell at me, Bailey. I'm going to.
Right now, I'm stressed about your situation.
My name is Gina Dobson. I'm calling from Pasadena, California. I'm 40 plus, and I'm excited to be here because I just really want to know my spending habits and how I can best utilize money that I'm making that's not reflecting in my lifestyle.
Awesome. Well, that's the point of this show, is to help people understand money more, talk about it more, figure out ways to improve their financial health and get out of debt. So what do you do for work out in California?
So for work, I am a teacher. I'm in the Los Angeles Unified School District, and I've just entered my 19th year now. I have not done 19 years in LAUSD. It's a combination of teaching that I've done in New York and also some school districts that are outside of LAUSD. So yeah, that's what I do as I'm a teacher.
I can't tell you how much you can change the trajectory of the show as well by just doing one simple thing, and that's hitting the like and subscribe button so more people can find us, more people can learn, and start realizing they need to start taking action on changing their life. Awesome. How much do you make a year as a teacher right now?
$65,000.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you define your current financial situation? 1 being terrible, 10 being best in the world.
4, about 4.
And why do you say that?
So, gosh, what do I even? There are layered complexities. That's often a euphemism that I use when I can't explain that specifically. What I would say is I've had job losses in between, and so whenever you stop a job and then you restart, you lose a little bit of traction, and then you have to gain. And so when you're not making money, then you make money. You have to pay off bills when you weren't making money, and then on top of that, I've had some health issues and things like that in which I didn't have insurance. So I had to pay for that. And then I have more debt to income ratio, in which is very compelling. And I think with some of the paperwork that you have, you'll see just in loans alone, student loans, I have 3 master's degrees. My parents are great. They paid undergrad, but my 3 masters cumulatively cost me about $230,000, in which I'm still in a payment plan. And that's excluding all of the credit card debt and everything else. So it's a pretty funky place to be in it currently.
Wow. I saw you when you initially put out there $250,000 roughly in debt, but I don't think you sent over the breakdown specifics for those. So let's dive into that then. We have student loans. Let's start with that. $230,000 worth of student loans.
Yeah, unfortunately. I don't regret the degrees that I ascertained, in that I'll always have a job. One is in Masters of Science in Education Administration, which would put me on track to be an administrator, a school site leader. The other one's a Master's in Education that even helped me to become a teacher, in that I was a communications major undergrad, which meant that I was looking to become a journalist, whether that be print or broadcast. And then when I had the understanding that I would be going into teaching, I had to take education courses. So that was helpful. My last master's is a master's of divinity. So I'm a member of clergy, so I could always be a preacher. So I don't mind that I will have career mobility. The problem is I can't believe that American education costs this much. I think it's ridiculous. And I thought that I'd be able to forgive some of those loans through Biden's program, but I wasn't able to. And so I'm just stuck. And so unless I marry a trust fund kid, I don't see this absolving itself. So it's pretty difficult.
I mean, frankly, this is one of the problems, in my opinion, of just the education system, is just allowing $230,000 worth of loans to be approved. Because frankly, if I had a say in who got approved loans or not, it doesn't make sense to give out $230,000 worth of loans for master's degrees to go and be a teacher making $65,000 a year. I think that's one of the biggest issues right now in our world, is we have situations like this where you go and get $200,000 worth of loans, but then your income right now is $65,000, which is nowhere close to being justifiable for $230,000 loans. I mean, that's basically what a lot of individuals, I know some people have gone to med school and they're coming out as med school making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they have the same amount of loans, but that's a lot easier to pay off making $200,000, $300,000 a year versus $65,000 a year.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we have like levels in which we get raises. Like we were just striking back, I think March, April. And so after it was said and done, we just received a nominal raise. Now I'm not complaining. I'm blessed to have a job. But I think honestly, the work that we do as classroom practitioners, I mean, in school situations in which there's violence and gun shootings and all of that, at least first year teachers, and I'm considered greedy. I think we should start at about $100K a year, putting up with the parents, putting up with the kids, putting up with school site administrators, the public that over scrutinizes what we do. So we're grossly underpaid. And you're right, the debt to income, it just doesn't match. On top of that, and this is what I want to bring to your listeners, is that I probably pay about $5,000 a year that I'm putting into the classroom because I work in a district that's high risk. So the parents, they don't have the funds when we need to do stuff that's technological driven, because not every kid has a computer. We have outdated books. So there's things like that I say, oh, don't worry, I'll just buy it. I'll just get the laptop or whatever, that kind of thing. And so I think it's really unfair that we would get such a low pay for the absorbent amount of work that we do, honestly. And so I'm hoping that this broadcast will shed some light on that going forward.
Teachers are definitely put up with a lot with students. There's obviously a lot of issues in school systems and healthcare and everything in the government when it comes to funding, and can't really change that currently. But what I do want to talk about is figure out how can we get you in a better situation to get out of debt, figure this out. And that's also just a big eye-opener too to anyone watching this, is like, if you're going into a career field making $65,000 a year, that's your projected income, please do not go take out $230,000 worth of loans, because my heart breaks for you right now looking at this. I mean, $230,000 loans is not an easy obstacle to overcome with this income.
No, it's not. And that's been the frustrating part for me, Bailey, is I don't even know how to begin to dig myself out of it. I refuse to work another job because we work like 30 hours a week on paper, but when it's said and done correcting papers, I'm working about 60 hours a week. I can't take on another job. So I don't know what the landscape's going to look like for me even to begin the process of trying to get out of debt.
What's your interest rate on these student loans?
Oh gosh, if I had to take, this is rough justice in terms of what I'm putting on the loans, probably 11%. I'm guessing somewhere around that. It's not.
Wow. That is not cheap debt.
It's loan sharking.
Okay. And have your student loans been paused for the last 3 years?
So I pay a little bit as I can. Could I be paying more? Yeah, I was going through forbearance and deferment, but that's breaking the fall because it's just going to add more interest. So I started, paying as much as I can, which is not a lot. So I'm still collecting interest, but it wouldn't be as if I'm not paying anything.
With those loans resuming this month, what is your minimum payment right now?
$250.
You're on income-based repayment plans right now?
Yes.
And have you looked into, how long have you had these loans for?
Oh, gosh. The first loan I think I might have gotten would have been around like circa 2002, somewhere around there.
Have you looked into the SAVE plan that's just been rolled out?
I'm not familiar with that. What's that?
So that's when Biden's student loan forgiveness got denied by the Supreme Court a few months ago, and
Right.
student loans resumed this month in October. Off the top of my head, I think borrowers can start having some balances forgiven after 10 years. So I just looked it up. Borrowers will see their loan balances forgiven after 10 years of repayments instead of 20 if they had original loan balances of $12,000 or less. So that's definitely something I know that they're trying to instill to help people that are on income-based repayment plans or have such high loans with low income to not have just interest accumulated nonstop. I don't know the ins and outs of the SAVE plan, but if you are on I would definitely just look into this, and I'll send you some different stuff, but it's trying to help. If you make your monthly payment, your balance won't be growing due to unpaid interest. And then also with it, there should be forgiveness after, it looks like 10 years. And it depends on what loans you have. Some are eligible, some aren't. It depends on if you've missed any payments. It depends on the timeline of it, the balance of those. I don't know exactly when these are going to start rolling out. I think it's next year, I want to say.
Okay.
It has additional benefits that will go into effect in 2024.
Okay.
And it says borrowers with original principal balances of $12,000 or less will receive forgiveness of any remaining balance after making 10 years of payments, with the maximum repayment period before forgiveness rising 1 year for every additional $1,000 borrowed. For example, if your original principal balance is $14,000, you'll see forgiveness after 12 years. I'll send you a bunch of resources after this, but this is definitely something you need to look into because, I mean, the only other way for you to get out of this is going to be, which is definitely an option, is, hey, you got to go figure out how you can put these 3 master degrees to a better use in terms of income and find a job that's paying you $100,000+ a year, and live like you're making 60 and start throwing this money at it, and you can get debt in the next 5 to 10 years, which is definitely a route that I would consider. But while you're at it, you need to be looking at what are these other options that you have, because this is a deep hole to be in right now.
It is. And it makes me, the thing that I don't like is that I'm not sleeping well at night because I'm always thinking about who I owe. And just when I think I got a game plan, here's another bill that's coming in that's not related to my educational loans. So I just feel like I'm mounting in debt, and that's not good for mental health as I battle depression and generalized anxiety. So, and I was thinking about Bailey, even before I was looking forward to this call for a myriad of reasons, but I wonder, when we think about debt, do we consider people that are battling, that are neurodiverse, such as myself? I'm clinically depressed, generalized anxiety, chronic fatigue. Like, how has loan companies considered us? Not that we want to be a victim, but I mean, how do we even begin this when we're just battling day to day of getting up? And I'm sure for my group in the mental health field, it's probably even harder because we can't make sense of what this is.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult to me to tell you what loan companies think. I mean, they want to get paid at the end of the day, and I 100% understand the anxiety and the stress from this amount of loan, because I can't imagine how that feels. And you've had these loans for 20 years now, some of them, and it feels like you're not making any progress. And the reality is, as we've seen this year with the government stepping in, trying to forgive some student loans, is the only person that can change that is yourself. And the only person that is going to take action, you can't depend on the government on changing it. You can't depend on the loan companies for forgiving these loans. The only person that can change your financial future is yourself. And it comes down to educating yourself, learning what are your options, what are some different steps you can do there, creating a game plan, and then sticking to that. So that's what I want to kind of talk through, is what are some different options? What can we do? What are some different lifestyle changes or ideas that you might not have thought about, just similar to the save plan? Would I depend and base your entire future on the save plan? Because we don't know if that's going to change over the next year. We don't know if that's going to change over the next 5 years. We don't know the ins and outs of that. But it at least is an option to look into and say, okay, what can this do to benefit me right now to stop interest from accruing as much? And what does this mean for me moving forward? But we still have to take a lot of other action besides just, hey, hope and pray this works.
Right.
But let's talk about other debt. So we got the $230,000 worth of student loans at 11% interest. What other debts do we have?
A credit card debt.
What's the total balance?
But it's going to sound bad, but it really isn't that bad. I was looking at it because I'm a part of Credit Karma, Wallet Hub, and Experience. I'm able to get like real-time information, like $10,000. I don't know. I don't think that's incredibly bad. I think some Americans.
Not good.
I know.
It's not good. You have to be real with yourself. $10,000 of the credit card debt means you have spent $10,000 on things that you couldn't afford to spend on.
You know what, though?
And compared to the average American, I mean, the average American is in credit card debt, but the issue is, do you want to be average and be in all this debt, or do you want to make change? And based off of you telling me that, hey, I have anxiety from these bills, this $10,000 is a lot, because if you have that $10,000 gone, that is $10,000 less worth of anxiety that you have bills outstanding to other people.
I will say, so let me kind of re-clarify what you said. I don't take it personally or anything like that, because Americans do spend a lot of money on foolish things. So I wasn't going out buying $3,000 shoes. Mine was, like I said, if I didn't have the money, maybe I'd borrow from my credit card for health bills, because healthcare wasn't bringing in what it needed to do at the time that I started the journey of teaching. So mine was more like the quote unquote robbing Peter to pay Paul, helping some friends out that were in a hole. I had a friend that was homeless. In fact, we went to college together, well educated, that she worked for a not-for-profit, and the not-for-profit folded. In her words, she had to make quick decisions. Her daughter's godmother, kind of took care of her daughter. She thought she was only going to be homeless for about 2-3 months, and it's been like 5 years. So I'm not going to let her be on the street. So I was putting her up in hotels. I mean, so my credit card debt is not about taking away the reason we have credit cards, to build credit and to buy foolish things. Mine is about using the money that comes from the credit card to kind of help people that are needing help. So maybe I'm a little overzealous in that way, but I guess I don't regret that, because I know at some point I'm going to put something together to get out of debt. But if someone's hurting and in need, I'd rather do that and err on the side of caution than to be a complete jack and not help people. That's just not how I was raised. So, but I want to be clear for your listeners that that's not what I was doing, was going out buying, expensive clothes and fur coats. That's not what I was doing. So I don't want judgment on that.
No, and I definitely understand helping people when they're in need. But at the same time, if you're spending money that you physically don't have and put on credit card debt, you're hurting yourself and return trying to help someone else. And that is hurting you mentally. That is hurting you financially, trying to take care of other people. And it's like the saying with on a plane is when the masks come down, the oxygen mask comes down, you got to put your mask on first before you can put other people's masks on. And right now, if you're taking out $10,000 worth of debt to put people in hotel rooms or do X, Y, and Z, then you're putting other people's masks on for them first while you're just killing yourself. And that's not something I want you to do, because you can't help people 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and give generously if you're just holding on to all this credit card debt for the rest of eternity or continuing to add on to credit card debt. So you have to prioritize yourself first and foremost before you can start helping other people. And
I agree.
It is very, very generous of you to do that. But also you have to look at, okay, what are other ways that you can help individuals? Maybe it's not financially, maybe it's with your time. Or maybe it's, hey, they need a couch to crash on for a few weeks. Or maybe, hey, they need help finding a job and you help them spruce up their resume or help them apply to different jobs. But when you can't give financially because you don't have the cash and means to live or to do it, you have to figure out how can I help people in other ways and help them. If she's been homeless for 5 years, how can you help her go get a job and get on her feet that way? How can you let her sleep on your couch for a week or 2 weeks or have a shower at your place and use your towels and get freshened up or eat a meal with you at home that you're cooking? But when you're swiping that card left and right for other individuals, when you can't pay your own bills, that is hurting yourself and stabbing yourself while you're trying to help other people. And that, in my opinion, a slippery slope because you're putting other people before yourself, which is causing you more stress, more anxiety, and more problems financially than it's probably helping. So, but I'm all for helping people. It's just figuring out how can you help them that is within your means and doesn't hurt you in the long term or in the short term. So, especially when you stated that, hey, I'm not sleeping well at night because of this debt. And if you're going to swipe that credit card for someone else, it's just causing you to lose sleep, causing you to have more stress and hurting you overall.
Noted. Thanks.
Yeah. So what other debt do we have? We have the student loans, $230, credit card debt, $10,000. And what's the car loan balance?
So the car loan is expensive because of my credit. So what happened earlier this year in February, my car was minding its own business, parked where it should be. A construction truck was working on, well, not the construction truck, the worker who owns the car had been for weeks working on a project that was down the street from me. And so he didn't see my car and he totaled it, parking it. And that was almost paid for. So I had to take on a new car note in June. And
someone was driving your car and totaled it?
My car was parked minding its own business. It was parked. A construction truck pulled up. I guess what I'm gathering at the time of the morning I did a little autopsy on it, and I think he was probably running late for work. So he parked in a space you shouldn't park in, I guess just so he could clock and then run back and park correctly. And we know that when you're running late, you're not being as careful as to driving, especially when you're parking. So he didn't see my car. I don't know how he didn't. So his construction truck hit my car and totaled it.
And did you not get any money from that? Did the construction company not pay for the car?
Because I was almost finished, but I had some ballooning on the loan that I had because I was late on some things. So what happened when they did pay, they paid for the part which was with the blue book value of my car. They didn't pay for what the car was when I bought it. So I could have bought it for I think I bought it for 15,000, but the blue book value was about 10,000. I think they gave me about a $4,000 check. So then not all of it was paid. So I'm still paying that off because even my gap waiver didn't. Here's the thing about insurance. They promise all these things when you buy it. Then when something happens, like, oh, well, we don't cover it because. So my gap waiver wouldn't fill in what is supposed to be the gap of what insurance doesn't cover. They didn't. And so now I'm having to refinance and then pay on that. So essentially, I'm paying a car note for my first car, this new car that I got, well, new used car, and then I'm paying on the balance that was left from the last one. It's almost like having two car notes.
So they paid you $4,000, but the car is worth $10,000. Why didn't you get the full $10,000 from the insurance or from their insurance?
It's a scammy, and I mean, that was the same question I asked. I guess I should have lawyered up on that. But it was a lot of paperwork that they gave me, and they were, giving me examples of why they didn't have to. I just, again, dealing with mental health, I didn't have the time to really absorb what that looked like not paying it. So I'll be honest, I didn't fight it.
Were you dealing with that directly, or was your insurance dealing with it?
So my insurance didn't cover. So the only way that they got involved was they told the other company, you need to pay, but they themselves, because it was at the onus of the other company that owed me, my insurance, because I had limited liability and collision, there was nothing that they could give me. And that was a mistake that I made because I used to have full coverage on my car. But then full coverage was so expensive. I think it was like $200 something a month. And because I was already in a lot of debt, I thought, oh, well, let me try to lower it per month. And I think when I stripped down to like $60 a month, I didn't realize getting limited liability and collision meant I wasn't getting a lot of coverage on my end. So my insurance company couldn't really kick in either, but they were there as a conduit for any conversations that I had with the other insurance, just as being a witness.
So you got $4,000 for it. What is the remaining balance on that first car loan?
It's $6,000.
Okay, $6,000 remaining on that. Do you know what the interest rate is on that and what the monthly payment is?
The interest rate, because of my credit, is 21%.
21? That is basically a credit card right there.
Uh-huh.
And what is the car loan number 2? What is the balance on that?
Well, I just got that in June, so I have a balance, and I bought it for, I think, for like 15,200 something, and I paid, what's it, July, August, September, 3 car notes at $392. So what is that, 1,000? A little over 1,000. So yeah, I got about 13.5, 13.8. I mean,
what's the interest rate on that?
I think it's around 20%, somewhere like that, because yeah. Mm-hmm.
Your balance on that has not gone down $1,500 then, because if it's at a 20% interest rate, that is amortizing barely, probably. I mean, if you've made 3 payments on it, your monthly payment's about $400, it's probably down like $500, maybe, probably about $450 with a 20% interest rate. Is it a 5-year term or is it a 6-year term?
5-year.
60 months?
Yeah.
Okay, so that puts you about $14,744 roughly as the ending balance after 3 months. So you got minimum payment of $392 on that. What is the payment on the first car loan?
That was $351 and some change.
So you have $800 basically of car loans right now?
Yeah.
Why did you go buy a $15,000 car when your previous car was worth $10,000?
Because so in a perfect world, if my credit wasn't horrible, then I would have been able to get a smaller car at a cheaper price. But because it wasn't, that was the only car that was available. It wasn't, what I'm driving is not a Mercedes or even a Camry. It's a $15,000 car that's not a really big car.
How many different car places did you go to find this?
A lot of car places wouldn't even deal with me. And I couldn't afford to keep having the hard pull on my credit because it was taking it down. So I went through a place that is a certified dealer for used cars. And that's where I got my last car. And they were the best that I had, even though it's the less of how many evils. But like individual car lots, they weren't dealing with me with my debt to income ratio.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking at this, and I mean, 2 car loans at 20% is just not a fun picture there. And then credit card, I'm assuming your credit card debt's over 20% too in terms of interest rates. Do you know what the minimum payment on that is?
My minimum payment, and this is bad that I'm doing the minimum, which is like $40 because I can't afford to be robust in trying to pay more because the money that I have is being spread in so many places, including putting money back into the classroom. So,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, with all this, I mean, debt payments right now, and this is with the minimum payments on student loans. I mean, you have $1,033 worth of minimum payments every single month right now going towards debt.
yeah.
Okay. And any other debts apart from those 2 car loans, a credit card debt, and student loans?
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay. Assets. Do we have any assets? Any savings? Any investments? Anything?
Zero. So what I mentioned is that, before this broadcast, is that I owe so during quarantine life when the world was shut, my 2 teacher credit unions that I had bank accounts with or credit accounts with, they closed. I owed them money. And so they did what's called a charge off. I don't know if you're familiar with that word. They closed it, but it's still on my account. Charges. People think, oh, good, they charged it off. They paid it. But that's not good. It's a negative report. So, I have prepaid cards that act as banks so that, for instance, if I wanted to put a little savings or something, if there's ever time to, I could preload it on that card. So at present, I don't have that.
So monthly expenses that you sent me. So you said you're making $65,000 a year, and in the state of California. Are you single or are you married?
Single, no kids.
Single, no kids. Tax calculator, I'm looking at a line. You should be bringing in about $50,000 after tax, but you put $3,200 you're bringing in. But my calculation would be about $4,200.
But remember, I'm in California, so between pension, they take out our pension, which is good. I get pension. They take out income tax. They take out that I'm a member of my union, my teachers union. They take out money. And miscellaneous stuff, it dwindles down. I'm not lying. It goes down to about $3,400. Yeah, a lot comes out of my check.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense if they're taking out pension and union stuff. Do you know how much they take out for your pension every single month?
I'd be lying to say. I don't.
And then union, okay, so that's about $1,000 a month going towards those things. So your net income right now is about $3,200, what's in your account every single month?
Right, yes.
Okay. And then monthly expenses, we've got rent for $1,479. So your rent currently is 46% of your net take-home pay, which is not a cheap number. Gas and electricity about $130. We have car insurance $221. We have car payment number 1 is $392. We have car payment number 2, which really I guess it was your first car, is $351. Gas $160. So we have $1,124 a month going towards auto and transport. And then we got groceries $200. So that brings your total necessities to $2,933. We have miscellaneous expenses. You put $200, and we put phone bill $120. And what's not included in this budget is student loans, which you said is $250 right now. And then credit cards, you have $40 right now is your minimum payment. So really that brings your total expenses to $3,543, which is $300 more a month than you're bringing in. Okay, so I can see why we have nothing currently in the bank or in savings because bills, loans, debt. I mean, debt at 20% interest rates is destroying you right now.
Exactly.
Okay, so what have you done? I guess how long has this been going on? How long is this cycle? Obviously, you've had the first car loan for a while. You said you had about $6,000 left on it, so you've had it for a couple years. How long has the credit card debt been going on?
I'd say about 10 to 12 years is the credit card debt. And then, and I remember too, around maybe a little longer than, no, around that, because it started after the recession kind of ended. Because remember, we went into a recession in 2008, and then we kind of teetered and got back to normal around 2012. So yeah, it's been about 10 years.
Through that time period, have you ever paid off all your credit card bills on time and had no debt, or has it always been a cycle of getting close to the balance, being paid off, and then something comes up and
I've come close, but there seems to be life events lurking. For example, my mom lives on the East Coast. She's elderly. So having to go home and all of that, and plane tickets aren't cheap. And so I'll charge a ticket that's like $400. I'm not going to not visit my mom because I'm in California. She's in New York. So, there was one point she had a blood infection from diverticulitis in her colon where the infection was going to her brain, and I almost lost her. So I was going back and forth a lot. Thank you, Jesus, she's still here. So, when you're dealing with an elderly parent, that brings in a whole other set of barriers. You know what I mean?
yeah. And so over the last 10 years, what have you done to, I guess, educate yourself more about finances, or have you had any strategies of trying to get out of this debt?
I do. I'm a YouTube fiend, so I watch videos, and I've gone to those seminars. I can't pretend that part of the lure is the food, but like they'll go to a restaurant, you'll get this like random email, and we'll pay for your dinner, and then they bring in a speaker who talks to you, and then they try to get you to sign up for services, that kind of thing. And so I've gone to those, and I've talked to people that are financial experts in the field, and then I'll sign up and get in, some kind of a meeting with the individual. And then somehow just life kicks in. I'm busy again. And they're calling me saying, you still interested? So we can start investing your money, that kind of thing. The only time I really felt a reprieve on my debt, again, reverting back to 2020, was when the world shut down. And then all of a sudden there was philanthropic benevolence where companies are like, don't worry about it. We got this on this bill. We got this on that bill. Don't worry. So certain things I saw starting to work out for me. But as soon as the world opened back up, then it was like, okay, more bills are coming in. I'm back on that hamster wheel kind of thing. But no, I never really had a resolve around.
When it comes to going to events, if you go to events and people are trying to get you to invest, I mean, right now investing should be the last thing on your mind because you've got interest rate loans that are at 20% plus. So like there's no world that you can out invest 20% car loans or 20% credit cards. So investing should be kind of, hey, we got to clear this debt off first, figure that out before we start investing. Even the student loans, frankly, those being 11% interest rates, the average return of the S&P 500 the last 30, 40, 50 years is around 10 or 11%. So that comes with risk. That comes with taxes as well on those capital gains. So right now, there should be no thought about investing because there's $260,000 worth of debt right now that we got to figure out before investing even comes to mind. What needs to kind of happen is figuring out how can we figure out a plan for paying off this debt or getting out of this debt. What are some of the different YouTubers that you're a fan of or have learned from over the years?
That when money comes in, I've never been in this situation, but if you make money, pretend you're not making that money and just throw it in a bank and don't touch it. And I've always envied people that do that. Like they're very disciplined in that. So like if they're not in the debt that I am and they're making $60,000, that they're going to put a stock away like maybe 30,000 in different bank accounts, and then they live off of what they have and they live very frugally. And I've never been in that position that I could just pretend that there's money that I can't touch.
And who are some of these YouTubers that you watch typically?
Well, sometimes I get sucked into, like you're watching a video. It could be a music video or a vlogger, and then they have these commercials, and it's like, don't scroll, just listen to the rest of this. And so somehow I don't press skip ad. So it's not specifically anybody. It's just those type of internet commercials.
You watching commercials and clicking on commercials. That's a little bit different than going out and educating yourself and finding people like, for example, Dave Ramsey is phenomenal with helping millions of Americans get out of debt. And I think he's one that would be very beneficial to learn from and learn his baby step plan of getting out of debt. He's been helping Americans, debt. And I'll send you his website, his links. I'm a huge Dave Ramsey fan. That's who started me on my personal finance journey 10 years ago. But he essentially teaches like what he calls the baby steps. And step 1 is save $1,000 for emergency funds. Step 2 is list all your debts from smallest to largest, and you start the debt snowball. And then step 3 is building an emergency fund. Step 4 is investing. And then just so on and so forth. But he is a phenomenal resource when it comes to helping individuals get out of debt, figure out a plan for that, how to budget, but also use some resources. But that's one thing that you really need to start doing is start educating yourself more on just finances in general and learning how do you how do you start getting out of this process? And credit cards, for example, do you have any of these credit cards open still? Do you have any accounts with credit cards you've used anytime recently?
No, so they're open, but I absorbed the benefit of having extra money to use for a rainy day. So there's no extra money. It's just like they're open.
You can't charge anything.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a good thing, because that means that balance is going to keep climbing if you have the ability to do it. And what Dave Ramsey teaches, especially when you're in debt, is stop using a credit card and start using a debit card, because then you have to really think about what expenses you have in life and cut back on things. Because credit cards allow people to swipe things, and in instances like, for example, when you're buying a friend a hotel room or you're doing anything, if you don't have money in your bank account, you can't buy that for that individual. And debit cards kind of help prohibit people from spending money that they can't afford. And so that's why Dave Ramsey teaches don't use credit cards, use debit cards. And I'm a big proponent of that teaching. If you ever have credit card debt, if you ever find yourself paying interest on credit cards, you need to cut that credit card up, put it in the freezer, whatever it is, just don't ever use it again, because banks are making so much money off of you having credit card debt, having interest payments every single month, that it's not even worth having a credit card open. And by using only a debit card, you'll be able to cut back on some different spending. But let's go and
I have a question. I've always heard that you should have at least one credit card. Is that true?
So people over glorify credit in America. And that's in my opinion, something that causes so much debt. Is people say, hey, I need to have a credit card so I can improve my credit score. I need to have a car loan to improve my credit score. But then they find themselves in just swallowed up in debt. And I mean, credit card debt hit $1 trillion in America right now, because so many people thought, hey, I should get a credit card so that I can go and improve my credit score so I can have a great credit score, whatever it might be. And then they find themselves in debt. And so whether you have a credit card, you could have a credit card. If you have a credit card open and you pay it off in full every single month, I don't have an issue with that. If you have a credit card open and you've missed payments, you're carrying a balance, I have a problem with that, because you're just wasting money using a credit card at that point. And I think if you're carrying a balance, if you ever pay interest, you shouldn't have a credit card. And I frankly don't care about credit score when it comes to people that have right now being $260,000 in debt. The last thing I would care about right now is your credit score, because you're not going to get approved for any loans right now, and you will improve your credit score tremendously by paying off debt versus getting another credit card and paying it in full or every single month. So credit scores shouldn't really matter right now when you have $260,000 worth of debt. I mean, I have an 800 credit score or something, and I've never carried a balance on a credit card. I've never done a car loan, and the only loan I've ever had in my life is a mortgage. And yes, having a higher credit score helped me get a lower interest rate on that house when I applied for it. But besides that, credit scores only matter if you're going into debt. 99% of people would be better off in their life. And as you said, debt gives you anxiety, would be better off not having any debt. So if your credit score was zero, and you had no debt, you'd be living a lot better life than having a credit score that's 800 with a $50,000 car loan and carrying a credit balance or whatever it might be. So I would not focus on credit score at all right now, because that won't matter right now. What matters is figuring out a plan to get out of this debt. Snowball method on how to get out of debt, paying the smallest debt off first, and then snowballing that is definitely something that you're going to need to learn, educate yourself on, start figuring out a plan of action towards that. Because right now, as we've talked about, you're the only person that can change your financial situation is yourself right now. So you got to start figuring out what are some ways to do that. And looking at your expenses right now, I mean, right now, the stuff you sent over, the only thing that really looks out of order, there's two things. One is a plane ticket for $294 this week. What was that for?
Don't yell at me, Bailey. I'm going to homecoming. My college
You're going to homecoming for what?
I miss my friends.
I don't care if you miss your friends. You have $260,000 worth of debt. You can't afford to go to homecoming. You're sitting there telling me that these are necessities on your card, and then we're spending $300 to go to homecoming when you don't have money to pay your credit card bill right now.
I know.
These are choices you have to make in life. And right now you're choosing to be in debt, and this money, that is $300 that could be going towards the credit card debt, that could be going towards a car loan, paying down the balance more. But right now you're making the choice to go and travel and go to homecoming versus paying off this debt. And we've talked about there's a couple of choices in life. It's continue to pay the minimum payments, anxiety, stress from that, or hey, you got to have a season of life where you're not going to homecoming, where you're not going out to eat. You don't spend money on that, but you use that towards the debt. And you can't do that. I thought that was going to be a trip to go see your mom or visit your mom because she was sick. But instead, you're telling me it's going to homecoming, and that's not a priority. That's not family. That's not a necessity or requirement in life. And right now, you're deciding to stay in debt and spend money on homecoming versus hey, let's throw that out of the credit card debt that is just drowning you right now.
Would I sound gratuitous if I said I feel guilty and when I come back, I promise you, Bailey, I'll change? Can I say that?
You got to change. You got to change. There's got to be drastic changes for this, because I don't want you to be 60, 65 years old and still have $260,000 worth of debt. I don't want that for you. That sounds like a atrocious 20, 25 more years of just stress and anxiety from this debt. And I want today to be that day that changes for you. And I know you can do it. You got 3 master's degree. You're a teacher. You put up with so much stuff in the classroom. You're a smart person. I know you are. But it just comes down to we got to build better habits, figure out a plan to do that. Same with, we got NFL Enterprises, $54. What are you paying NFL.com $54 for right now?
I love football.
I don't care if you love football. We got this debt right now. But you can't be paying $54 right now to watch NFL football. That's $350 that can be going towards a car loan, that can be going towards credit card debt.
I'm not just saying this, but I am beginning to see the error of my ways. I promise you that. I do. I'm sorry. No, I didn't really think about this. I in broader strokes thought about, okay, I need to save, but you really made me do my homework and I suck. I got to do better. Honestly, I'm seeing
When's the last time you budgeted your money?
probably over a year ago.
Over a year ago. So that needs to change as well.
Correct.
So what I would like for you to do after this, and again, I'm going to send you a lot of different resources, because right now I'm stressed about your situation, and I know you are. And the only thing that you can do right now is you got to start taking action. You have to start educating yourself. You have to start learning what you can do here. But a few things. One is budget. You have to start writing down a plan, writing down, understanding what all your minimum payments are for your debts, what your rent is, what the minimum amount you can spend on groceries. There's no eating out. There's no shopping. There's no traveling for homecoming. You have to be cutting down to the bare bones and figuring out how much money you have left over every single month to start paying down this debt. And then you need to be going the debt snowball route to start paying these debts off from smallest to largest. So if you have a credit card balance of $1,000 or credit card balance is $3,000, that would come first. And then you start working your way up to the bigger loans, the $6,000 car loan. If there's a credit card that's higher than that, whatever it might be, but the debt snowball is smallest balance to the highest balance. Start figuring out that plan of action, start throwing those extra, even if it's $300 a month, that will help speed up paying out this credit card debt so much faster than paying the minimum payments. Minimum payments, you're going to be paying those for 20 years, probably. And I don't want that for you. So you got to be budgeting. You have to be figuring out your strategy of paying off debt using the debt snowball method. You have to be educating yourself more about finances. Dave Ramsey there's countless free, hundreds of hours worth of YouTube videos. There are free resources. He has a podcast. I think he's a tremendous resource for you to learn from and start figuring out, understanding there's people in the exact same situation you are across America. And he talks to them every single day and tells them, hey, these are ways to get out of debt. And he has a great system that millions of Americans have used to pay off debt and get out of debt. And I know you can follow that too. If you can run a classroom with dozens of children, then you can figure out and stick to a curriculum of paying off debt and getting out of debt. If you can finish 3 master's degrees, you can follow a program on how to get out of debt. I have faith that you can do that, but you have to start figuring out that plan, start educating yourself. And then the other thing is what expenses can you cut out in your life? And this might not be the best thing or the most fun thing, but maybe it's a season of life. You figure out, okay, do you have a roommate for a year or two? Do you have a cheaper living place that you can live in and cut out a couple $100s a month out of that? But figuring out what can you do there. Because right now we can't get out of the car loans. We can't get out of the credit card debt. And we can't get out of the student loans. And the only expenses, the biggest expense right now that could change is maybe it is the rent. Maybe it's moving to another city, getting another job that pays about the same in a lower cost of living area, and your rent's only $1,000 or your rent's only $900. But you have to start looking at options for that as well. Because right now that takes a big chunk of your money and is going to cause you just continuing the cycle. But you really have to start educating yourself. And I know you said this at the beginning of the broadcast that you don't want to get another second job. Maybe that's something you have to really seriously consider for the next, it's not forever. Maybe it's for the next 12 months. Maybe it's the next 24 months till we get out of the credit card debt, till we get out of the car loans. And then we start figuring out what the next path is. Or maybe the path is, hey, instead of getting a second job, you have 3 master's degrees. What can you do in your current community that there's jobs that you can go get paid $80, $90, $100,000 versus getting paid $65,000? That extra $30,000 or $40,000 will go a long way to getting out of this debt. That will speed up your process of getting out of debt so much faster. But you have to take an action on that. And I know you probably love teaching, you love being with these children, but maybe for the next 2 or 3 years, you're doing more administrative work that gets you a higher salary that's $100,000. And then once you're done with that, then okay, you can go back to teaching elementary school kids. but you really have to figure out and decide, do you want to take action on this? Do you want to go and for the next couple years, it might not be the dream perfect life. It might not be the dream perfect job that you want, but if that means you get an extra 20, an extra 30, an extra $40,000 a year, that will help you pay off this debt so much faster than staying in this current situation. Because right now in this current situation, making $65,000 a year with $260,000 worth of debt, it is going to be a long, long road. And I don't want that for you. You got 3 master's degree. You spent $230,000 on these degrees. Let's put them to use and figure out how can you make more money from it. And investing, all that stuff, you don't need to worry about that right now. You need to worry about getting out of debt, paying this debt down, and then, okay, what can we do for setting up a Roth IRA? What can we do for setting up taxable brokerage accounts? But right now, we got to figure out a plan for the next couple of years that is bare bones budgeting, bare bones living, no homecoming, no eating out, no NFL for $54 a month, and start taking action and throwing that debt at this, because you will start seeing traction using the debt snowball method, and you'll be getting traction. You'll be paying off the first credit card, second credit card, and you'll be unstoppable after that. Yes, the student loans is going to be a huge balance, but again, look into the save plans. What does that mean? Right now, you need to be paying the minimum payments on that because that is the largest debt right now. So that's not even paying the minimum payments on the student loans until we get the rest of this debt cleared off, and start looking into the meantime, what do these save plans do for you? What are things that can help you with student loans in terms of interest not ballooning with some of the different plans that came out. But you need to be worrying about these smaller loans first, because that's how the debt snowball works, is pay off the lowest balance first, and the student loan payment is the largest balance. So worry about the other loans first, pay the minimum payments on the student loans, and then once you get all those other paid off, you start figuring out what is your plan of action to pay these debts off. Because the last thing I want you to be is the next 20 years, 25 years is living off of these minimum payments on these debts and just being stressed out of your mind. I want you to get all these debts cleared. That's $1,000 a month. You can use that towards investing. You can use that towards traveling. I don't care what you do with it. I would want you to save some of it, but that gives you a lot more budget to start enjoying life. And you will have, I can promise you, yes, maybe the next 5 years are going to be stressful in terms of sticking to a strict budget, not traveling, whatever it might be. But I can promise you, once you're debt free, you will feel so much weight lift off your shoulders and enjoy life so much more, because you won't owe anyone money. And that will be the greatest feeling that you have, because you've been under this stress for the last 20 years now.
That's very true. A great summation of my life. And I promise you this, I want you to know this is not for naught, because it's made me open up my spending habits, and I'm ashamed. And I promise you, Bailey, this will not be taken for granted at all.